Good morning and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Today is Monday, September 18th, 2023. We are here in the Larimer County Board of County Commissioners conference room in our second floor office at 200 West Oak for our Larimer County Administrative Services building. We're here for a work session regarding a housing authority's follow-up, and this is a commissioner's work session. Excuse me. I am Larimer County Commissioner Jody Shai-McNally, Chair of the Board of County Commissioners, and I welcome you today. I'm joined at the conference table by my colleagues, Larimer County Commissioner John Kafalis and Larimer County Commissioner Kristen Stevens. Also joining us today is County Manager Lorenda Volker and our Assistant County Manager Lori Kadrich. We also have Alea Rodriguez, our Housing Stability Manager, and she will have some guests today, and so I will ask Alea to go ahead and start us off with the session. Thank you, Alea, for your work and for this information today.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good morning. As said, I'm Alea Rodriguez. I'm the Housing Stability Program Manager with Larimer County. And we're here today just as a reminder to the board and the public as a follow-up informational work session with our local housing authorities. This is a follow-up from the session that took place on August 7th. There were some questions asked at that work session that didn't get answers during the session, so we're going to answer them today. The questions asked, we were asked to go more in depth around 3 programs at Housing Catalyst, one at Estes Park Housing Authority and one with Loveland Housing Authority. So our guests today will go into those, and then there were also 2 open-ended, bigger picture questions around Prop 123 and their city housing strategic plans. So they'll be discussing those as well. And I'll be paying close attention to the time and making sure that we get through and everybody has enough time. The last slide for each housing authority will open up for commissioners if you have further questions. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Julie Bruin, Chief Executive Officer with Housing Catalyst, to talk about the 3 programs and perspectives from Housing Catalyst.
Good morning, commissioners. I didn't get to be with you last time. Kristen, Fritz, and Michelle Christensen were here. So I want to follow up on some questions that you all had. One was specifically about the Jump Start Family Self-Sufficiency Program.
Could you, thank you.
Is it on?
Is the red light on?
No.
There it is. Okay. Oops. One is about the Jumpstart Family Self-Sufficiency Program, and you wanted some more details about that program. That's a HUD program, and it's specifically for people who participate in the Housing Choice Voucher, or you remember Section 8 voucher program, as it's called. So we have 30 new participants that have enrolled in Jumpstart in 2023. The average escrow payment payout is a little over $18,000. So as people move off of public assistance, their escrow is building up that whole time and it's eligible for them at the end. They can also take loans from it during the time that they're participating in that Jumpstart program. Over the time people participate, the average increase in earned income is around $12,000, a little over $12,000. 134 participants currently enrolled, and about 10% of all the voucher holders that Housing Catalyst administers are enrolled in Jumpstart. The Larimer County vouchers, we don't have as many people enrolled because most of those vouchers are mainstream vouchers for non-elderly disabled households, is the way HUD defines those particular vouchers. So I'll pause there before I go on to the other 2 questions.
Commissioner Kafalis, I see your hand is raised.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and nice to see you, Julie, and good morning, everyone. Could you further clarify? I mean, these are good data points. It's great that folks are participating. I seem to recall back in the day when things were a lot simpler in life and in work. The way that folks participating in the Family Self-Sufficiency Program, the escrow account, is that if they were in a, if they were using a housing voucher and they got a job that paid more, their rent would go up, and then rather than charging them that rent, we would set it aside. Could you explain that a little bit?
That's correct.
Is that how it works?
Yep, absolutely. So there's a baseline when people come in, we take a look at their baseline income, and they pay 30% of their rent, or their income toward rent. So as their income goes up, that difference does go into this escrow for them to use loans, or it could be a down payment at the end of the program when they've finished.
Because as their income goes up, then I don't know how often it occurs, they have to report that right away, and then their rent goes up, and instead of charging them the 30%, the additional amount goes into the escrow?
Yeah, they can report it anytime they have an income change. We don't require any families to report income other than annually. If their income goes down, they can also report that immediately, and we'll adjust their portion.
Okay.
But it's our thought that if someone's income goes up, build a little nest egg and a little breathing room before your rent portion goes up as well.
Great, thank you.
Commissioner Stevens, did you have any questions?
No, I don't have any question. I guess I wonder, how do you get the word out about this? Because are you wanting to have more than 10% of folks participate? And is there
Well-
hesitation for some reason for some folks?
But there are two parts to that. It is a HUD program, and HUD pays for the self-sufficiency coordinators. And that's maxed out right now. We have as many coordinators as we can. We could grow the program bigger, but as people come on the voucher program and when they recertify annually, those staff are always encouraging people to consider this program. I think something we see happening is when you first come on and get your voucher, you're not even thinking about getting off your voucher. You're just breathing for the first time in a while. So we reach out again periodically and definitely every time we see them for annual recertification.
Thank you.
And a lot of the families we serve, are disabled households as defined by HUD that don't have earned income. So that's what we're really focusing on. It really is an employment program, this particular program.
Gotcha. So folks who are retired, folks who are, have a disability income wouldn't be part of this
We can
program.
work with them, but it doesn't have as much
Benefit.
benefit.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't think we have any further questions. If you want to proceed.
Okay. All right. You had questions about Oak 140, which is a low-income housing tax credit development in Old Town. So we have some demographics for you on the screen. The number of people who are elderly as defined by HUD, which is 62 and over. Is that making us all cringe that that's elderly? There's some other demographics for you. The people who are employed, who have employment income, I want to pull that up quickly. Oh, shoot, I closed my, I want to give you an example of where they're working downtown. Sales associate at the Clothes Pony, one of the breweries, a bartender, one of the olive oil stores, sales associate, a manager of a cafe, a bartender at Social, an employee at Poudre Public Library. Those are specifically downtown. And then other people that are employed in our community are a Summit Stone case manager, substitute teacher for Thompson and Poudre School District, Innovage counselor, athletic director, and a title clerk at an auto dealership. So those are just examples of the kind of employment for those folks. I think that was most of what you wondered last time. The interesting thing is because those are one-bedroom apartments and they're served by an elevator, we did have a lot of people with physical disabilities apply immediately. And we know that's a need, and so we're serving that need.
That's wonderful. And I appreciate the opportunity to come tour when you had the opening. It was really helpful to visualize and walk through, and it was a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful facility. Commissioner Cafalas or Stevens, any further questions on Oak 140? Commissioner Cafalas.
Thank you. Thanks, Julia. I thought you said a moment ago 1 bedrooms, but isn't it a range of apartment number of bedrooms?
There are a few two-bedroom,
So it is primarily 1 bedroom?
primarily
And
one-bedrooms.
that would explain the average family size.
It's mostly single individuals.
Folks, yeah.
As with all of our properties, a lot of times if we have two-bedroom units, sometimes that's a person with a live-in aid as well.
And I guess one other observation or comment I'll make is, well, maybe 2. One is great partnership, all the players to get this up and running. It's a real asset to the Old Town area, and certainly other projects on the horizon. I'm kind of struck by that average annual income per household, $32,000. That's must be all those dishwashers and folks who cook the meals for us. I mean, that's a pretty darn low income. Well, it's for one individual, so.
You know, and that's the average of those households. I should ask staff, we probably should have separated the earned and unearned income households.
That might be good.
We could
yeah.
do that in the
Anyhow,
future.
thank you for letting me comment.
Thank you. Commissioner Stevens.
Yeah, thank you first of all, I wanted to take a tour of Oak 140. I can't remember where I was when I couldn't be there, so we'll
Yeah.
kind of do that at some point, hopefully. And then with 1% welfare, does that mean people that are receiving TANF or SNAP benefits, or do we know what?
I believe that's correct.
Okay. And I just want to thank you for pointing out what the kind of jobs people have that live in these facilities, because I think that sometimes the community doesn't understand that, what kind of folks might live in a place like Oak 140, where we have affordable rents, and it's people who work in our community that we see every day. It's people that greet us at shops and that serve us our food and every day. And so I think that that's really important, is that most of the people are either working or have some kind of income.
Right.
And that they are people that we meet daily, that they're not it's just frustrating and it's probably frustrating to you, that people don't understand what the need is in our community and who's living in these spaces and why. And, my guess is that, if I remember right, $32,000 is about $15 an hour. And there are a lot of jobs in this community that pay that. And so, as we think about our need for affordable housing in our community, so many people need it, and so many people, that we need in our community that do important, good work for us need to have this affordable housing available. And so I thank you for providing it, and thank you for, DDA and everyone who combined to be able to make this a reality.
Yeah, and if I may say, I liked those actual examples I just gave you. When we do neighborhood outreach, when we're starting a new development, I remember this with our Village on Horsetooth development the most. We pulled together a list of jobs we knew that a lot of our families were employed by. Because what we hear is, we need affordable housing for teachers and firefighters. Okay, but it's a lot more than, that at one point became palatable, and we all want to get behind teachers and firefighters. But these real examples, dozens of different professions. And sometimes we're questioned about, well, is your goal to help people move on to home ownership? Not necessarily. If my household is a veterinarian med tech and my husband is a mechanic, am I going to be a homeowner? Not in these interest rates. And so we know these families may actually live with us forever. Our goal or our thinking isn't that it's temporary and that we need to move everybody on and up.
Right, and the more availability we have in our community for, folks to live, it's not people who are commuting in, it's people who are not living with the stress of affording market rate rents, which are And they grew higher
up
than my
here.
mortgage.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they grew up here, and they deserve to have a place to live like everyone else does. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Stevens. I do echo sharing about how, Oak 140 is serving just people that are working downtown. It's just so important to be able to, with transportation needs and everything else, it's just really a great fit. And I appreciate hearing those stories and understanding how it's already immediately serving this need and working. So I think it's really exciting to hear, and I appreciate all that information. I appreciate the partnerships, and I appreciate the chance to have a chance to tour and be involved and have some voice, and I just want to say thanks for that. So
Thank you.
I think that's all I have for now. So just wanted to say kudos. I think some great spaces that I've gotten to tour and just very impressed with most spaces. So, all right, let's move on to the next one.
Well, if I'm running out of time, would you like me to jump to one of the other topics, Prop 123? The Moving to Work program is pretty simple. Housing Catalyst competed nationally for moving to work status. It's a pilot program that gives us some flexibility with our funds and how we use our housing assistance payments. And we're specifically in the landlord incentive cohort, and we will be able to use some of those housing assistance dollars to encourage property owner landlord participation in the community. And we're just starting, so we'll look forward to more reports on that in the future.
I think, no other questions? Commissioner Gonzalez.
Sure, why not? Are we on track there, Ms. Rodriguez?
We are.
A question that comes to mind, well, it'll be good to see how this is working when you have information to share. Thank you again, Julie. I know we have considered perhaps a role for the county to help with this type of landlord incentive program. If we go down that road, how do you see the entities working together, and certainly with Loveland Housing Authority as well? Maybe it's premature.
I think it's easy to work together.
Sure.
I mean, we're looking at national statistics on what other housing authorities have done successfully. We'll be able to track a lot of data and work in concert with all other entities. We don't want to duplicate those kinds of incentives, but we just really want to dovetail all of it together. Yeah.
Okay, there's other questions, I guess, Leah? Oops. If there's no other questions, I guess, Leah, we can just continue to proceed.
Okay, do you want to talk about the City of Fort Collins housing strategy plan? I don't know what to say about that. As we talk about the land development code updates and we talk about property tax measure for affordable housing, I think it's important to remember that not one of these solves our issues, and that housing is very expensive to develop. And we've got to go at all of these different pieces. I think of the land development code as the bottom rung of the ladder. And we have to really look at things like capacity of land or density, the ability to build for our community as it is today. I don't want to say the old land development code is archaic, but it most certainly doesn't reflect who we are in our really vibrant community. So all of those pieces, we can't subsidize our way out of this. We know how much it costs to subsidize affordable housing development. The low-income housing tax credit is the primary tool for affordable deed-restricted rental. And we just have to go at it from all different perspectives.
Okay.
That was very general, but if you want anything specific, I'm happy to answer.
I guess when you're making a comment about the city's strategic plans to address housing, and knowing that we are, as a county, obviously with hiring Alea and some of our work, and then also looking at our comprehensive plan, and then our upcoming, or old and new upcoming strategic plan, how would you what would you advocate for? Or what would you like to see as we are in the process of moving into a new strategic plan and knowing that we have, Alea's fantastic in the relationships and work that she's done and helped us kind of navigating all these new spaces with 123 and all these other things happening. What would you advocate for? I know that's a big question,
Well,
but
I think you can look at any pieces of property that you own that might be able to be used for affordable housing development. I think that you are already very thoughtful about where development should occur, because we don't want sprawl, and we, especially since so many of the people we serve with these programs that target extremely low-income households and people with disabilities, we don't want them, all their services are in the cities. So if we can build on those kinds of things, I think that's helpful. I think that as you continue to look at your land development code and you look at density and accessory dwelling units, all of those pieces help. Not, ADUs are not going to help solve our problem, but every little piece is helpful.
and ADUs that are used for not short-term rentals, but for actual housing, long-term housing for residents or for folks in need of housing. And would you, I just think that,
I don't have a lot of research on that.
okay. I appreciate that, and I appreciate the collaboration, the partnership, because I do think that, as you said, this is a very complex, comprehensive, as you know, Center for Public Deliberation, wicked problem to deal with. It's not a wicked
Yeah.
thing. It's just the issue, and we talk about. They always use that. It's not the people. It's the wicked problem that we're trying to
Yeah.
negotiate. And I think it's going to be really important that all the folks, all the government agencies, the nonprofits, the advocates, the residents, everyone working together, because this is an issue that is not going to be solved overnight, and it's going to be a long-term solution, I think, and we have a lot of things put in place. So I appreciate those comments. Sorry to put you on the spot like that, but I just think it's a big question, and as we're going forward, and since we have you here, and we're talking about follow-up, and it was bigger picture perspectives, then that fellow was kind of a good point to ask, what would you see going forward, so.
I appreciate that, and I'm probably not the sharpest on Monday morning. But you already allocate your private activity bonds to affordable housing development using the tax credit program. That's very, very important as we go forward, since the tax credit tool really is the only tool we can use right now. In fact, I have a website I'll send you all the link to. I'll have Alea send it. It's a really fun tool that helps you see how the tax credit program works, and you can play with it yourself, and you can play with different income levels and see really what the cost is in Colorado and how you can finance, how much debt you can carry on a development, and then how much gap you have.
Okay, that's helpful. I think I'd be very interested in that.
It's fun.
Okay, well, with that, Commissioner Kafals.
Yesterday in the Coloradoan, there was quite an extensive article on the proposed water fees that the city of Fort Collins is considering. What are the implications for what you do, your organization?
Well, I wish I had development numbers on the tip of my tongue, but it's a significant issue. When we're trying to fill those gaps and you suddenly have another huge gap in your pro forma per unit, it's significant. Especially on affordable housing development on the rental side, because we can't increase the incomes and you can't increase the debt. So how else do you fund it? You have to fund it with some other kind of gap source.
It seems like it would, one potential consequence would be that the per unit cost, if you're doing multifamily, would dramatically.
The cost of construction increases
construction.
significantly, and it increases with a gap that can't
That
be filled.
affects how much subsidy you need, or tax
Yeah.
credits, or,
Yeah,
yeah,
yep,
okay.
that's right.
I imagine that'll be a spirited conversation going forward, pros and cons.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, Alea, let's proceed. Thank you, Julie. Again, a big question, sorry to throw it, but I just thought it was a good spot, so.
Thanks.
Right before we move forward, Julie, did you want to mention anything about Prop 123?
Just that I was very involved with the conversations with the city. We did get our alternate baseline approved, and Housing Catalyst has submitted an application for Prop 123 funds for a land banking opportunity.
Okay, well, let's move forward to Estes Park Housing Authority. I'll hand it over to Scott Moulton, Executive Director.
Good morning. Once again, Scott Moulton, Executive Director of the Estes Park Housing Authority. Thanks again for having us and hosting the follow-up. One of the follow-up questions you all had for us was to talk a little bit more about our anticipated deed restriction programs, specifically in light of the passage of ballot initiative 6E. And while the process of signing the MOU for the use of 6E funds with the town has taken a little bit longer than I anticipated in the beginning of the year, we're off and running now. So I am ramping up our capacity to be able to dive into potential programs that we can stand up to help our local workforce. I have really good contacts in the Vail Valley, Summit County, some in Idaho, and a few in Wyoming. The good thing is we don't have to start from scratch on these programs. So I currently have an open position for a housing program manager who will take the lead on developing deed restrictions. So we'll look at what is out there in our state and other states, what has worked well, what hasn't, allowing us to hopefully hone in on a few programs that we believe will serve our local community in the best way. And to provide an example, one of those programs could be an enhanced down payment assistance program that in exchange for an enhanced dollar amount that could be 10, 15% of the purchase price of a home, the community will gain a deed restriction on that home for local workforce and potentially income restricted as well. So it's just one example of a program that we could look at standing up. Any questions on deed restrictions? That was a very brief, quick overview. But.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and don't want to let Scott off too easy. I'm curious, I think the City of Fort Collins is looking at increasing the time frame for deed restrictions from 20 years, which is typical, to perhaps 60. Is that something you folks are thinking about? Or what are the pros and cons of that, perhaps?
In Estes specifically, we will look to have deed restriction lengths as long as possible. So we do have a recent subset. There were agreements between the developers and the town that were only 20 years. We'll look to put 90 or 99 years on those deed restrictions, hopefully in perpetuity, to preserve any housing stock that we are able to preserve with the deed restriction, that it remains as long as possible.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Stevens, do you have any further questions? With 6E, there was also a childcare component. It's not only the housing. So the MOU, is it with, and maybe this is not the right question, but I'm just trying to understand, because there also has to be an MOU with the childcare entity, and then the housing, and then the town, and then we're also overseeing some of that. And where is because I know we have a piece of this, so I'm just kind of being clear. I want to be for the public to hear, but also to just level set the expectation of what our role is here.
So you might recall when we visit with the Visit Estes Park operating plan discussion, I want to say that's later this month, early next month. This division of childcare versus home ownership or housing will be part of that discussion. So the town will do that discussion with you on the tail end of the Visit Estes Park operating plan discussion. So you will have full oversight, full view of what's going on at that meeting.
And I believe that meeting's virtual, and I think there's some overlap there, so I know that's an important discussion. So will we get an idea of the agenda for that meeting and timing, et cetera?
So you typically get your material about a week ahead of time, just like we would for any other meeting. It is virtual to avoid travel back and forth to Estes Park. We typically do that virtually, and we'll have a packet for you ahead of time. And I'll reach out to the town and make sure we have the full information ahead of that meeting.
Okay, that's helpful. And then, I know, Scott, you have been coming even to our planning commission and having some conversations and looking at projects. And so I know you've also been reaching out and having meetings with folks who separately, who might serve on a board or commission for the county, but some separate groups. And so I appreciate the community engagement and things. What have you learned about the community's interests or questions with these other extra meetings that you have been involved with?
I think in all of the speaking engagements and one-on-one conversations inside Estes and outside, the single takeaway I have is our community certainly understands the need, wants to be part of the solution. Two groups that I spoke with, they ended with, how can we help you? What can we do to further the needs of housing? And also our community is fiending for that information. What is the plan? If you remember going back to the ballot language, once it became public, once we drafted it, the largest question, well, how are we going to utilize the funds under 6E? How can we vote for this if we don't have a plan? And we asked the voters in our community for a little bit of faith and trust, because we were in the midst of a new housing needs assessment with the strategic plan. And we've largely used that time, that document, and this year to build capacity so that we can begin implementation into next year. So that's what I've learned from most of my speaking engagements is they want to see action. They want to hear from us, both the town of Estes Park and the Housing Authority, and understand what our plan is, how we're tackling the housing needs in our community.
I appreciate that. I know I heard from those groups too after they met with you, so I was just curious for your perspective, so I appreciate that very much. Thanks. So, any other questions? Okay, so I guess on to
Yep, so
the
you
next
kind
topic.
apologize, Scott. You kind of dove into this a little bit. Sorry, it says city. If you'd like to talk on your town's strategic plans in addressing housing.
Yeah, just very briefly, I'll go backwards a little bit to 6E and the joint study session that is upcoming toward the end of this month. The town and the Estes Park Housing Authority have been working quite closely together to develop that annual operating plan, which is part of that approval process for the county, VEP, and then, of course, the town of Estes Park as well. Portions of that document are informed by our first annual housing supply document as well, which has been drafted in draft form. My board reviewed that last week in our monthly board meeting. So as we move forward with this, there's been obviously a very close collaboration with the town and other folks in our community to develop that document and have a plan going forward. So I've appreciated the sort of renewed partnership with the town that we've been able to undertake.
Questions, colleagues? I don't see any, so, okay. So, there's some projects that are currently under construction. I drive by them weekly. When I say weekly, I mean it. So I'm up there a lot. And I know there was one that was potentially having childcare built in on site. That's not the one that's on 7. Is that the one that's being constructed? And that's the one that with the childcare built inside?
The potential exists. So there is a separate parcel attached to that project. The short answer is that group could not find the funding for childcare to actually build that at this time with the other part of the project. Where I think the community sits now is the town is evaluating responses to an RFP that was put out for a childcare needs assessment. And I think they're getting pretty close to selecting a group to work on that with hopeful anticipated completion in Q1, springtime of 2024. And that will really inform us on the childcare side, what our community needs are and how we can utilize the funding for 6E that's dedicated to childcare best. So eventually, we of course believe that will mean the need for new physical space, whether that's one center, a couple different centers, but at the moment, we just don't have the data to back it up. And where we put the money currently, tuition assistance, some money set aside for childcare providers to provide a competitive living wage when there's a little bit of a gap there. And then the needs assessment, again, I think will better inform us on what our capacity needs are on the physical side of that. So that site is there. We know we sort of have that in our back pocket and could utilize funding for 6E to help fund that gap.
That's helpful, thank you. I think that's all I have. Okay, so Leah, or Scott, do your next conversation.
Yeah, I'll touch on Proposition 123 very briefly. The town of Estes Park successfully opted in. And much like Housing Catalyst, we also submitted a letter of intent under a land banking program. Under Prop 123, I'm also in conversation to potentially apply for some other funding under the concessionary debt side of that, which is now enabled by the town opting in. So we would like to also see the county opt in if that is feasible. Given our unique relationship to the Estes Valley planning area, having the county opt into that program will sort of unlock the door for us and funding opportunities inside the county as well.
Commissioner Kafalis.
So has it been decided that a county opting into Prop 123, when you look at your, the requirement to increase the number of housing units annually, how does that apply to the county as far as whatever we might add in the county that you all build, because we don't build, that would add to meeting that requirement as far as annual growth in number of units and so forth?
I'll let Julie step in on this.
Forgive me, I may not be articulating, but you'll figure it out.
I actually might kick that to Alea. We all got together in a room about a month or so ago and had this conversation about what that would mean. If it's overlaid, is it duplicative? Do you end up with a higher increased baseline, making it harder to meet that mark? I don't know where that research came out, Alea.
And I
Yeah,
think you're going
definitely, I
to give us
can
an
answer
update
that.
soon, right?
Yeah, so we'll be discussing Prop 123 further this afternoon in a work session. I'll be bringing that to you all for direction. But to answer your question, it would be through IGAs with our municipalities, not through the housing authorities, in order for us to get credit for the units that are built within a city. So say an affordable housing unit is built within city of Fort Collins. If we contributed to that development, for example, like Hartside Hill, we would need an IGA in place with the city of Fort Collins to share those units towards our commitment. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
That is all I have from Estes Park, unless there are any more questions from me.
I think so.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here today. I know you had a longer drive than anyone,
course.
including me, so I appreciate you being here today in person.
Happy to be here.
Thank you.
Okay, Leah.
All right. So I'm going to review the program and the bigger picture questions sent to me by Jeff Phineas, the Executive Director at Loveland Housing Authority. So first of all, there were questions around the Larimer Home Improvement Program. So here's some demographics to answer those questions. These are specifically demographics around the Larimer County's contribution to the Larimer Home Improvement Program, which Larimer County has contributed to this program for several years now. In 2022, the funds that were contributed assisted 14 emergency grants for unincorporated Larimer County homeowners, which actually came out to 47% of all the grants awarded. So you can see it's a large amount of unincorporated homeowners that are benefiting from this program. There were also, in addition to those emergency grants, 3 mobile home repairs for unincorporated residents. The loan program requires a match in order to assist mobile homeowners in their repairs, and that's where the Larimer County funds come in to be a key piece in this. They wouldn't be able to do those loans without the Larimer County contribution, because DOLA requires that match for the mobile home repairs specifically. All the households who received assistance, of all the households that received assistance, you can see some of those demographics there. Majority of them were below 30% AMI, average median income. 6 of the households who received the emergency grants identified as Hispanic, 7 self-identified as having a disability, 10 were seniors. And then in 2023, these demographics are still building because we're still in 2023, but so far there's been 7 emergency grants and 3 mobile home loans which are in progress, and 2 of which have been approved. So you can already see an increase in the number of loans for mobile homes in unincorporated. And I do think that could be attributed to a lot of the outreach that's happening to the mobile home parks through Larimer County and in partnership with Loveland Housing Authority and City of Fort Collins and others, just letting them know that these funds are available. So that's great to see that increase. I'm happy to answer questions if you have some to the best of my ability regarding this program. I can pause here.
Commissioner Stevens and then Commissioner Gonzalez.
Yeah, in the past, I remember that one of the things that was often funded was maybe hot water heaters in mobile homes. And I know that they're very specialty because of the size that they have to be. Do you know what most of the repairs involved, or is there any? It can be done on follow-up if we don't. I'm just kind of curious about what kind of repairs they're.
I absolutely should have had that pulled up. I do have that, and I can follow up with what most of the repairs go towards.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, sort of like, I don't know. I mean, it could help us, I guess, to figure out, like maybe how to be proactive in some of this work, or I don't know, but it would just be interesting to learn kind of what kind of programs need. Where folks need help. And then how many people, is anyone turned away? I mean, certainly the funds dry up and then people are, and so kind of knowing what kind of projects are out there. I mean, I don't know if that can go then to a volunteer group that might be able to cover some of those additional, I think Serve 6.8 or a group like that likes to do work in the community. How can maybe other community partners help kind of fill in the gaps? So just curious. Thank you.
Yeah, I think those are great points and good questions. I'll definitely follow up with majority of the work being done. I'll also say that Linda, who is the manager over this program at Loveland Housing Authority, is very connected to those types of resources as well. As far as I know, I don't believe people are being turned away due to lack of funding. They may just not qualify due to maybe the income in the home or the repair that needs to be made. This program really targets safety repairs in the home. So if you're adding a deck or something like that, that's not going to necessarily qualify for these funds.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah. Appreciate the additional information when you get that.
That's helpful. I'd be interested in that as well, Leah. Commissioner Gonzalez.
One of my questions I think you'll follow up on, and that is how well are we meeting the need? Is there a gap? And my other question is regarding the use of the emergency grants or the mobile home repair loans. How much of that activity was to make the home more accessible, especially if there are folks who self-identify, who have a disability?
Thank you, Commissioner. I'll ask that specifically as I go through what projects these served, which ones were around accessibility. Okay. So next are those bigger picture questions. So the city's strategic plan, City of Loveland's strategic plan to address housing. Jeff noted that Loveland's currently very active in attempting to address affordable housing. You can see that through on September 5th, the City Council approved their development code amendments that will enable affordable housing development by increasing density if it's an affordable housing development. He also mentioned the city's Affordable Housing Fund, which is funded by a 1.25% general tax, and that's used available to developers to develop affordable housing. They're considering reducing permit and development fees. They've also been very involved in the Loveland Affordable Housing Task Force, which meets monthly, which has identified these needs. I think they were very instrumental in that first bullet point of getting those code amendments done. And they have provided consistent and excellent support of Loveland Housing Authority.
And that's from Jeff's
Correct.
comments. Okay.
Yes, these were Jeff's comments. I did not speculate.
Thank you.
And then lastly, again, commenting on the county's role around Prop 123. This is a direct quote. He just said, if Loveland opts into 123, he believes that the county involvement isn't necessary for Loveland to be successful. County involvement might enable development in unincorporated areas, although he's not aware of much interest of doing so in those areas. And I'd just like to, now me speaking, let you know again that this is something that we're going to address this afternoon and discuss, because obviously we don't want to encourage any urban sprawl. So that's been on the mind of staff as we evaluate if it makes sense.
Well, I'd like to comment. I think that it is, obviously, we're partnering with other folks, and it's a great partnership. I would hope that Loveland and the Housing Authority would consider that the county could be a very important partner for things happening inside the town, and we already have shown that with some of the Valentines and then the other development that we worked on with the land grant with the one by the police department.
Micro-housing?
Yeah, micro-housing, so I don't understand. I'd like to think that they think of us as already successful active partners with that. So I just wanted to, I think that's, I just like to publicly state, I think that would hopefully be viewed as important collaborators or partners for future support. So I just wanted to state that for myself, so.
Thank you.
Colleagues, do you have any other questions or comments on that?
No.
Well, make sure I see your hands up. What would you like to say?
I would have some closing comments when we get there very quickly, but I'm curious, the 1.25% sales tax, Loveland, how much money does that make annually?
I will add that to my follow-up, Commissioner.
Of course. Thank you, Alea. That's all, unless we're closing up.
Bless you. It's 1.25% of general tax revenue, so that's from their general fund. And so I know when I served on Loveland Human Services Commission, it didn't increase. So I'd be curious, if has that increased, because I know that over the years I served on that amount did not increase for the Human Services Commission. So I'm just curious if that's increasing because of this task force. I know it was facilitated by someone who's not involved with city staff, but someone from outside. And so I'm just curious, do they have a published document from that task force? And are they looking to, when they say 1.25%, so has that increased over the last few years? I know they have a affordable housing commission, and I didn't know if that commission was the whole commission was involved with this whole conversation with the task force, or just select folks. So I'm curious about that as well.
I do attend those Loveland Affordable Housing Task Force meetings, so I'm happy to ask them their involvement with that as well.
Are you involved with that conversation or just watching?
I attend the meetings, I give county updates when necessary, and pay attention to how we can fit in.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you for that. Commissioner Stevens?
Yeah, so this is kind of in general. Are any of the other municipalities considering a lodging tax like Estes Park did? Do we know about that? Because, I mean, it does seem like it is, I mean, as Julie was saying, there's not one thing that's going to solve this problem. It's this sort of series of things, and they all fit together. That seems like a piece that would at least open up some dollars that might be helpful.
So I need to reference the memo that Cascadia completed for us on our affordable housing ideas and programs. But one thing they did look in for us, sorry, is the lodging tax. And City of Fort Collins, City of Loveland, they do already have one. So it's, what passed wasn't that you can now have a lodging tax, but it's that now you can spend it on housing. And I believe City of Fort Collins spends theirs all on marketing, in their marketing district on various events and things like that. So I haven't heard any discussion around changing the way they do already spend those dollars. And I'm not sure about City of Loveland either.
I think they can increase and that's what Estes Park did, right? Increase by 2 or 3% to be able to accommodate other uses for those dollars. And so.
You are correct.
Okay, so.
Yes.
It's, I mean, it would, I don't know how much money that would be in either city, but I mean, there's a decent amount of lodging. It could be, I mean, there again, every little bit helps, I think. So I hope that they are considering that because, I think that it was, some of the reason it was popular in Estes Park is because it is not a tax on your residents, it's a tax on
Right.
people coming into your community. And it's not like people are going to stop kind of coming into any of our communities. I mean, Loveland being the sort of gateway to Rocky Mountain National Park and Fort Collins being, having a major research university, I mean, people are always going to stay here. So, and use services from people who make a lower income. So, I mean, there is a nexus between between the lodging tax and affordable housing. I mean, we have to pay the people who work at restaurants and hotels and entertainment venues. And so I hope that it is being explored because I do think it is sort of it is more palatable than a lot of other taxes because it's not, the tax isn't borne by the residents, largely. I mean, I guess, staycations.
Thank you, Commissioner. So let me go back to that question. I'm just curious, because maybe you said this and I didn't hear it. Loveland, this task force in Loveland have not explored any kind of lodging tax to increase for like what Estes Park did?
I can't speak to that. I haven't heard it
You
in the
haven't heard
meetings
anything
that I
this
have
means-
attended, but that doesn't mean it hasn't come up in discussion prior.
I haven't heard anything. I'm just curious because I think, as Julie and Scott both stated, it's a lot of tools in the toolbox and a lot of things that have to, I mean, there's not one thing that's going to fix this. It's going to take a lot of activity, things. Do we know anything from Berthoud or Wellington or any other communities that are forming or looking at this or asking questions or
Specifically around lodging tax?
about this 123 and some of this housing and partnering and kind of maybe asking questions of some of our subject matter experts here, so.
There has been a few educational events hosted around Prop 123, and all of those areas were invited to attend, and they were recorded and sent out. So hopefully, and DOLA's doing a great job of reaching out to them specifically. We actually just had another one last week in partnership with Weld County, and invited the more rural areas to come out and ask their questions directly to DOLA. So the opportunities have been out there, and hopefully they'll continue to reach out.
Excellent, I appreciate that information, and again, thank you for your work. It's been really great to have you be the eyes and ears and kind of, representing this and the county and getting that information back to us. It's been really invaluable for me as a commissioner. I wanted to say thank you, so.
Thank you.
Okay. So is that all of our questions? And again, I just wanted to, I think Commissioner Cavalas had a closing statement. I just want to say thank you to Scott and Julie and to Alea and Loveland Housing Authority. I just appreciate you guys being here and coming back and just the partnerships and the work that we do together, because this is really, really, really critical work for our communities in the future of this county. So I want to just say thank you for being here and thanks for answering our questions, and I look forward to our future partnerships and collaborations. Colleagues, Commissioner Falls, you want to make some comments? And then Commissioner Stevens.
I also wish to say thank you and bring to your attention an upcoming event regarding affordable housing that I think is relevant in case you're not aware. But on Thursday, September 28th, at the Lincoln Center, Jen White, who hosts the 1A program, NPR program, is actually going to be there to talk about our favorite topic, affordable housing. And it seems like you all should, I think Julie is aware, but Scott, you might want to look into that. I think it's free, and it's a dialogue, hoping Alea can be there. But it looks like it could put Fort Collins on the national landscape as far as challenges and opportunities regarding our favorite topic. So yeah, next Thursday, the 28th, 7 o'clock. I think if you go to Lincoln Center, LC Tix or whatever, you can register and be able to participate. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yeah, I love to listen to 1A. She's been very active promoting that, and so I think that's been pretty visible to kind of sign up for folks. But I appreciate you bringing that up again, Commissioner. I think it's a great opportunity. Commissioner Stevens.
Yeah, I'll just add my thanks, and Julie and Scott, you do remarkable work with not very many dollars, and I'm sorry that that is the case, and so any way that we can assist you, please be in touch and let us know, and obviously Alea is, has helped us kind of understand the landscape as we kind of navigate forward with 123. There's a lot of added there's a lot going on in this world, and so we appreciate that Alea can help us navigate this space. But certainly, grateful for the work, and there again, anything that we can do to help you, we will. We're on board, and so we want to, with regard to policies or whatever that looks like, please be in touch with us because we do appreciate the work that you do, and we are really grateful for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I think you're right. It's been a lot of added, extended and added opportunities, but also complexities, which we're really grateful for you all and your expertise. And again, thank you for being here and just the opportunity to figure out how we can work together. Laranda, did you want to add anything?
I just want to say how fortunate we are to have Alea on staff, to have someone sort of wrangle this information and create these partnerships. This is a space the county's not been in before, and having Alea's expertise is really extraordinary. Thank you.
Well, with that, at 11:58, again, our gratitude. Thank you all for being here. We look forward to future conversations, but we are adjourned, and have a great day.